I was 14, and it was supposed to be an average night, nothing out of the ordinary. It was around 9 p.m., and I was at my aunt and uncle's house, babysitting my little cousin while my mom and aunt were out shopping. My dad and uncle had gone to catch a late movie. It felt routine, quiet even, but there was something gnawing at the back of my mind. A strange feeling that something wasn't quite right. I couldn't shake it, though I couldn't figure out why. My cousin and I were sitting in the living room, the TV flickering in front of us. He was engrossed in a cartoon, but I couldn't focus. My body felt restless, almost like my senses were on high alert. The air felt too thick, too heavy for such a normal night. Something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I glanced at the clock again, 9:10 p.m. I tried to brush off the creeping unease, convincing myself it was just the stress of babysitting in a house that felt too big and too empty without the adults around. But the feeling only got stronger. I felt a chill creep down my spine, and I had the overwhelming urge to make sure all the doors were locked. I told my cousin I'd be right back and got up, heading toward the back door. As I passed through the kitchen, I felt it, an almost palpable sense that I was being watched. I glanced toward the window, and that's when I saw him. Standing just outside, partially hidden by the shadows, was a man. His face was gaunt, his clothes filthy and torn, like he hadn't had a shower in months. He had this vacant, hollow look in his eyes. But what shook me the most wasn't his appearance. It was the fact that he wasn't looking at me. He was staring directly at my cousin, fixated on him like a predator watching its prey. My heart stopped, and for a split second, I froze. Every instinct inside me screamed to react, to run, to do something. But I knew better. If I panicked, I'd give everything away. I had to keep my cousin safe. I had to stay calm. I took a deep breath, forcing my body to move casually, as though nothing was wrong. I walked back into the living room and smiled at my cousin, my mind racing. "Hey, buddy," I said, keeping my voice light. "We should head upstairs and get ready for bed. Your parents will be home soon, and they wouldn't want you staying up too late." He protested a little, as most kids do, but I didn't give him much of a choice. I scooped him up, carrying him up the stairs, every nerve in my body screaming to look behind me, to check if that man was still there. But I didn't. I couldn't risk letting my cousin see that something was wrong. Once we reached the safety of his bedroom, I tucked him into bed. "You're going to have a great sleep, okay?" I told him, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. He looked up at me with those innocent eyes, completely unaware of the danger lurking outside. I smiled at him, though my stomach was in knots, and turned off the light. "I'll be right here if you need me," I whispered, closing the door softly. My mind raced. I knew I had to check the rest of the house, make sure everything was locked, but I couldn't leave him vulnerable upstairs, not with that man outside. My hands were shaking, but I grabbed my phone and called my dad. "Dad," I whispered as soon as he picked up, my voice trembling. "There's a man outside. He's watching the house." There was a pause on the other end. "What? Are you sure?" "I saw him. He's staring at the window. He was looking at my cousin." I could barely get the words out. "I don't know what he wants." "Call the police," my dad said quickly. "I'm on my way. Stay inside, lock everything. We'll be there as soon as we can." I hung up and immediately dialed the police. They told me it would take about 30 minutes for officers to arrive, but they promised they were on their way. 30 minutes felt like an eternity. I couldn't wait. I needed a plan. My cousin was safe in his room, but I had to secure the house. I grabbed the nearest thing I could think of for protection, a meat tenderizing hammer from the kitchen drawer. It felt ridiculous, but it was the only thing that resembled a weapon. Clutching the hammer, I made my way to the front door and checked the lock. Deadbolt, locked. Doorknob, locked. The back door, locked. But the man wasn't there anymore. I scanned the window, searching for any sign of him, but all I saw was the reflection of my own panicked face staring back at me. My pulse raced as I sprinted back upstairs. I barricaded myself in my cousin's room, sitting in front of the door with the meat hammer in hand. He stirred in his bed, peeking out from under the covers. "What are you doing?" he asked sleepily. "Just making sure everything's okay," I said, trying to sound casual. "Go back to sleep." But sleep was the last thing on my mind. I strained my ears, listening for any sound from downstairs. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every creak and shift feel ominous. I was on edge, every muscle tense, ready to spring into action at the slightest noise. And then it happened. A loud crash echoed from downstairs, the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. My breath caught in my throat. Heavy footsteps followed, the slow, deliberate sound of boots on the wooden floor. He was inside. My mind raced. I didn't know what to do. I was just a kid. How was I supposed to protect my cousin from a grown man, especially one who was clearly not in his right mind? But I knew I couldn't let him come upstairs. I couldn't let him get anywhere near my cousin. I gripped the meat tenderizer tighter, my palms slick with sweat. The footsteps grew louder, closer. I could hear him moving around downstairs, searching. I closed my eyes, focusing on my breathing, trying to keep myself calm. But inside I was panicking. He was getting closer. Then, the sound of boots on the stairs. He was coming up. Each step felt like a countdown, bringing him closer and closer to the room where I was huddled with my cousin. I heard him pause at the top of the stairs, and for a moment there was nothing but silence. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. The door to my aunt and uncle's room creaked open, then the bathroom. He was checking each room one by one. My cousin stirred again, sensing my fear, but I hushed him quickly. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I heard the footsteps retreat. They moved back down the stairs, and I heard the basement door creak open. 15 excruciating minutes later, the sound of sirens pierced the air. The police stormed the house, yelling commands. I could hear them clearing each room as they searched for the intruder. It turned out the man had escaped from a mental institution over a province away. He was dangerously unstable, wandering aimlessly, and somehow ended up at our house that night. But by the time the police arrived, he was gone. For hours afterward, I sat there, still gripping the meat tenderizer, unable to shake the fear that had gripped me. I had come terrifyingly close to having to face that man head-on, and for a brief moment there was nothing but a thin wooden door and 10 feet between us. That night, I learned how quickly a normal evening could turn into something out of a nightmare.